Let's go into the woods on a journey to find Bigfoot in the Dark Divide. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I hope you're having a good day today amidst whatever's happening. It's 2020. Anything can happen. But you know, the one thing that I have been doing to pass my time is just seeing some amazing independent films. And I am fortunate enough to have stumbled upon this movie, The Dark Divide, directed by Tom Putnam, who's joining us on the Film Threat Podcast today. Tom, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This is
cool.
Fun.
Well, it's a breath of fresh air. Your movie is, I mean, literally a breath of fresh air because I consider myself, and this is actually it's true. This is in my social media profile. I'm an indoorsman. I consider myself an avid indoorsman, watching a lot of movies. But this film is about. Well, first of all, I didn't even realize that this movie is a true story. It's based on a real person. And how did you discover this work? And then what led to getting this made?
Oh man. About 10 years ago, a friend recommended the book to me, and it was recommended, I think, with, hey, this book would make an amazing movie, but no one's ever going to make it into a movie. So of course I had to read it. I read it. I agreed. It takes place in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in Southern Washington. I grew up outside of Portland, and most of the locations in the book are where I grew up, just like camping and hiking and fishing every weekend. And it's during the period I grew up. So I just fell in love with it, got in touch with Bob Pyle, the author, who is also America's foremost lepidopterist. I'm getting really good at that word. It's an expert in butterflies and moths. And I just spent the last 10 years figuring out how to get it made. And somehow or another, it exists now. It's kind of a miracle.
Well, it's a beautiful film. I mean, what it's about is he's gotten a grant, right?
Yep.
He's gotten a grant,
Guggenheim grant.
A Guggenheim. Yeah, that's right. A Guggenheim. And he's off in the forest to, document rare insects, right? Like rare butterflies. So, what I find amazing about the film is, first of all, David Cross. I didn't know he could do, I mean, I knew he could do comedy. I mean, right. I mean, from Arrested Development to, I've seen his stand-up specials, read his book. I'm just a huge David Cross fan. Who knew he could do drama? What was happening between he and his wife? His wife has cancer, and she's going through all of that. So who knew he could do such intense drama? So it's this mix of like the David Cross who can do this comedy and drama, this pathos, and then also this beautiful spiritual experience being in. I mean, I don't even know how you shot some of this stuff.
It was,
Well, we'll get to that, but I want to talk about David Cross first and what led you to casting him and convincing him to take on this role.
Sure. The film has, you saw it. It doesn't have much dialogue in it. It's basically like a Jack London movie. And there are 30, 40-minute stretches where nobody talks. And I really wanted somebody who could bring a level of humanity to it, somebody we could relate to, who could keep us entertained, and who could just express what they're going through. And David just seemed like a great match. He looks right for the role. He's very accessible, and he brought so much to the film, actually, that I wouldn't have even imagined. Once he came on board, we spent about 6 months together rewriting the script, really making it work for him. And especially with a film like this, where we're out in the woods with a small crew, difficult locations, with his comedy background, he was great at helping us come up with quick solutions to, the many problems we encountered. Yeah, people are going to see a side of him that I don't think they've seen before. You see a little bit of it in The Post, which is a serious role for him. But he's this entire movie.
Yeah, he's just so good at that balance. And it seems to me, at least, he's kind of willing to do anything. There's, nudity. There's like, he's just covered in stuff. Like he's not the coolest guy. He doesn't really care about looking cool, or he's vulnerable and out of his element in many respects. And some of the stuff is cringy in the most fun ways, actually. So I just knowing that he contributed makes a lot of sense. There's also this. I really need to know how you were able to get some of the things that you got. There's a scene where he gets lost in a cave that is played. I think it's also the way that you used sound. There's some, there's sort of a mix of music, but there's also like this, you feel, and I will say this, as I mentioned previously, I'm an indoorsman. So this is, I'm going on this journey with him, and I would be just as awkward, I feel, and probably less capable. So how did you get all of that stuff? I'm looking at the vastness of everything, and I'm thinking, I know there's a crew somewhere, but where are they? Especially There's one shot in the cave where I'm like, well, where is everybody?
Yeah. A lot of that came down to David. I went into this, the film has a lot of stunts and a lot of scary, dangerous locations. And I went into it thinking, oh my God, every day I'm going to have to talk this guy into, doing this. And it was the opposite. I would be there with the AD and the stunt guys trying to talk David out of doing it. So it's like when you see him dangling off the cliff, that's David. When you see him in the water, which by the way was like 34 degrees, that's David. So he ends up lost in this vast network of lava tunnels deep underground. And that's David. Like, you see his breath. It was freezing cold. What you can't see is everything in those tunnels was razor sharp. That was a weird location. We spent the whole day there, and we literally went out into the woods, and there's this little like cabin out of Evil Dead, and the guy lets us into the cabin, and there's a closet door, and he opens it, and there's stairs that go down like 200 feet into this half-mile long freezing cold lava tunnel you could park a 747 in. It was the total Scooby-Doo. And yeah, if you see things that look like crazy, amazing locations, that's where we went and what we did,
Well, it was, it looked dangerous to me. So I'm going to assume David probably got hurt in a couple ways. At the very least, a mosquito bite, I'm going to guess.
There were some unexplained rashes, I think. We tried to be really careful. What you can't see is there's generally like a bunch of stunt people standing right behind the camera and people spotting him. But even little things like, hey, you're going to walk across a log. Well, it's covered with moss. That water's freezing cold. If he falls and breaks his leg, it's over. Every day was like that. Hopefully I was able to help facilitate that. My background is in documentaries, and they tend to be films shot in even more difficult locations. I made a movie called Burn about the busiest fire department in America. So we spent 14 months, running in and out of burning buildings. So I feel like I understand the sort of how to go into difficult situations and make those doable. But I think none of us expected what we were going to get into. And, you saw the movie, it's almost all outdoors. So there's a thunderstorm or it's raining. We didn't have anywhere to go. So we would just keep shooting.
So when there were changes in weather, it's not like it was scripted, like, exterior rain. It's just like you just go with the flow.
Yeah. There's a scene, I don't know if you remember it, where it's a huge thunderstorm and there's rain pouring down and there's all these burnt trees and you see David, little figure, like struggling through it. That's just him in a storm. Yeah, he was amazing. And he still managed to give, I think, a pretty great performance in the middle of all that.
Yeah, no, I agree. His performance is, I think it's underestimated. There's types of performances that get nominated for awards. And I wish the Academy would broaden their horizons and look for something. This was clearly a difficult role, but this is sort of also comes from a genre. There's a genre of nature survival films.
Yeah.
But this is, and frankly, not my favorite genre. I think that they ultimately take themselves too seriously and get a little boring. This I felt was so amazing because it had the thing that I love, the thing I like about those movies, but I think they take themselves too seriously, is this sort of like spiritual nature of it. Is you're on the journey, is not the place, it's the journey on the inside that is the thing that is most important. And I think that you did that so well, mixed with like comedy, and also it's David Cross and him being, at least I see myself in him, because I think that, well, he would probably handle things much better, but I think I would be just as frightened and out of place. But what were some of the challenges? It sounds like that, like David was up for it, and I know you had stunt people involved, but what were some of the challenges and the things maybe that he wasn't able to do?
There's not a lot he wasn't able to do. Our challenges were, I mean, you saw the film. I mean, we shot it in 22 days, which was like nothing. And we were just sprinting from location to location every day. I think to just capture the epic feel of this 6-week journey that he took, that was a big challenge. The butterflies, I mean, he's the world's foremost expert in North American butterflies and moths. So there's butterflies all over the movie. That was a huge challenge in order to incorporate those in a realistic and responsible way. And I think finding that mix, I mean, the movie is a comedy, drama, adventure, maybe science fiction film. That was a kind of tough needle to thread, in that we would have to drift sometimes in a single scene in and out of like all 4 of those genres. So it's like, what was a challenge? I guess everything is a challenge. Distributing it now is a challenge with COVID, you know?
Yeah. Well, but it worked. I mean, it all came together in all the best ways. It's also a movie that I would suggest you have to see this in a theater. If you can possibly see this, whether the theater is a drive-in or an actual theater, this is a movie that should be seen, just because of the just sheer vastness and the beauty that you captured in this film. So I know it comes out September 18th. You're booking it in theaters. Can you talk about the release?
Sure. So the film comes out September 18th on what's called a virtual cinema release. We're going to be in theaters across the country, amazingly. Mostly drive-ins, but there'll be some indoor theaters where they're socially distancing properly. And then if you go to darkdividefilm.com, you can rent the film and watch it online. And we're going to be doing some fun live events with the cast and the crew and experts in the field from basically middle of September through October. And yeah, if you can see it in the theater, it's an experience, right? That's one of the things we wanted to capture. We want people to feel like they hiked through this amazing, you know, America's one of its largest undeveloped wildlands. So we really wanted people to feel like they'd been through that journey.
And if I have an opportunity, because I've run into David Cross at film festivals before, at South by Southwest and whatnot, if I run into David Cross and I have an opportunity to ask him a question, what should I ask him about this movie? I'm hoping maybe to get him on the podcast.
I mean, David's a guy who lives in an apartment in Brooklyn, and then he went on this crazy outdoor adventure. I don't think he'd even been camping before. I would love to hear how did that change him at all? Did that change his perspective? I definitely watched him become a very capable outdoorsman. I mean, by the end, he'd thrown the pack on, knew when he had to adjust it, you know, and I wonder if that's changed his perspective on the world. I mean, the film is also about the healing power of nature and the importance in our lives, which, man, I don't know about you, I need that more than ever right now. That sort of escape and ability to get out and get somewhere that's quiet and center myself. I'd love to hear, for a guy that, you know, lives in New York and is up on a stage every night, how has that changed his perspective on the world?
Well, if I have the opportunity, I will ask him. And it did. I mean, this movie, it really is just a beautiful journey, not just through the place, but it's a journey of the spirit. And I think it's a type of movie that we really need now. So I think you convinced me. I'm gonna watch it again. I have to.
Cool.
I have to see it. And it's darkdividefilm.com, right?
darkdividefilm.com. I like your Oscar idea, because we're somehow getting into theaters. It's going to be like us versus Jumanji or something. Maybe he's got a shot at it.
Well, yeah. Well, there's The Invisible Man. I think your competition may be light. But yeah, no, I think why not mount an Oscar campaign? I mean, at this point, they've delayed the Oscars to what, April 2021. So I think David has a legit shot. It's and I would love to see that. I think that, and also there is a rich history of comedians who turn to drama being nominated. So it's not unrealistic to mount a campaign like that.
I like it. I'm gonna let's do it.
Okay. Tom, thank you for being on the Film Threat podcast. I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. If you go to storyblocks.com/film threat, you will sign up. You'll be supporting the podcast, but also you'll be able to get clips, 1 million plus clips of beauty and nature. You don't have to actually go there. You can get these clips online. And we use Storyblocks all the time at Film Threat, and it's a great tool for filmmakers to use. So I hope you check it out. Tom, it's been a pleasure talking to you, dude. Thank you so much.
Good talking to you. Thanks for watching the movie.
Congrats on the film. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.